To Young Political Worker by Bhagat Singh. Revolution is inalienable right of mankind. Freedom is the imprescriptible birthright of all. The laborer is the real sustainer of society. तो जो मजदूर वर्ग होता है वो रियल सस्टेनर होता है सोसाइटी का, जिसमें सोसाइटी सस्टेन करती है. द sovereignty of the people is the ultimate destiny of the workers. Bhagat Singh, a letter to young political workers, February 2nd, 1931. To the young political workers, dear comrade, our moment is passing through a very important phase at present. After years, fear, fires, struggle, some definite proposal regarding the constitutional reform have been formulated by the Round Table Conference, and the Congress leader have been invited to give this help if they think it desirable in the present circumstances to call off their movement. Whether they decide in favor or against is a matter of little importance to us. The present moment is bound to end in some sort of compromise. The compromise may be effected sooner or later, and compromise is not such ignoble and deplorable a thing as we note, such ignorable and deplorable a thing as we generally think. It is rather an indispensable factor in the political strategy. Any nation that rises against the oppressors is bound to fail in the beginning, and to gain a partial reform during the medieval period of its struggle through the compromise. And it is only at the last stage, having fully organized all the forces and resources of the nation, that it can possibly strike the final blow in which the might succeed to shatter the ruler's government. But even even then it it might fail, which makes some sort of compromise in inevitable. This can be best illustrated by the Russian example. In 1905, the revolutionary movement broke out in Russia. All the leaders were very hopeful. Lenin had returned from the foreign countries where he had taken refuge. He was conducting the struggle. People came people to came to tell him that a dozen landlords were killed and a score of their men mansions were burnt. Lenin responded by telling them to return and to kill 1,200 landlords and burn as many of their palaces. In his opinion, that would have meant something if revolution failed. Duma was introduced. The same Lenin advocated the view of the participating in the Duma. This is what happened in 1907. In 1906, he was opposed to the participation in the first Duma, which had granted more scope of work than this second one, whose rights had been curtailed. This was due to the changed circumstances. The reactions was gaining the upper hand, and Lenin wanted to use the floor of the Duma as a platform to discuss socialistic idea. Again, after the 1917 revolution, when the Bolsheviks were forced to sign the Brest-Litovsk Treaty. Everyone except Lenin was opposed to it, but Lenin said, peace, peace, again peace, peace at any cost, even at the cost of many of the Russian provinces to be yielded to German warlord. When some anti-Bolshevik people condemned Lenin for his treaty, he declared frankly that the Bolsheviks were not in a position to face the German onslaught and they preferred the treaty to the complete annihilation of the Bolshevik government. The thing that I wanted to point out was that compromise is the essential weapon which has to be yielded every now and then as I struggle develops. But the thing that we must keep always before us is the ideal of the moment. We must always maintain a clear notion as to the aim for the achievement of which we are fighting. That helps us to verify the success and failures of our moments, and we can easily formulate the future program. Tilak's policy, the quite apart from the ideal, that is, his strategy was the best. You are fighting to get 16 Anna from your enemy. You get only one Anna. Pocket it and fight for the rest. Pocket it यानी उसको जेब में रखो और बाकियों के लिए लड़ना शुरू करो. What we note in the moderates, if of their ideal, they start to achieve banana and they can't get it. The revolutionaries must always keep in mind that they are the striving for a complete revolution, complete mastery of power in their hands. The compromises are the dreaded because the conservatives try to disband the revolutionary forces after the compromise, but able and bold revolutionary leaders can save the movement from the such pitfalls. We must be very careful at such junctures to avoid any sort of confusion of the real issues, especially the goal. The British Labour leader, the betrayed the real struggle and have been reduced to mere hyp- hypocrite imperialist. In my opinion, the die diehard diehard conservatives are better to us than these policed imperialist labor leaders. About that, about the tactics and strategy, one should study life work of Lenin. His definite view on the subject of the compromise will be found in left-wing communism. I have said that the the present moment, that is the present struggle, is bound to end in some sort of compromise or complete failure. I said that because, in my opinion, this time the real revolutionary forces have not been invi- invited into the arena. This is a struggle dependent upon the middle class shopkeepers and the few capitalists, both these, and particularly the latter, can never dare to risk its proper property or the possessions in any struggle, property and or position in any struggle. The real revolutionary armies are in the villages and in factories, the peasantry and the laborers, but over the Bar- Bargios leaders, Borgios, Borgios, Borgios leaders do not and cannot dare to tackle them. The sleeping lion, once awakened from its slumber, shall become irresistible even after the achievement of what our leaders aim at. After his first experience with Ahmedabad laborers in 1920, Mahatma Gandhi declared, "We must not tamper, we must not tamper with the laborers. It is dangerous to make political use of the factory proletariat." The time, the Times, May 1921. Since then, they never dared to approach them. There remains the there remains the peasantry. The resolution of the 1922 clearly defines the horror the leaders felt when they saw the gigantic peasants class gi- gigantic peasants class rising to shake off not only the domination of the alien nation but also the yoke of the landlords. It is there that our leaders prefer a surrender to the British than to the peasantry. Live alone. Pandit Jawaharlal. Leave alone Pandit Jawaharlal. Can you point out any effort to organize the peasants or to the laborers? No, they will not run the risk that they lack. That that is why I so say they never meant a complete revolution. Through economic and administrative pressure, they hoped to get a few more reforms, a few more concessions for the Indian capitalists. They, that is why I so, why I say that this movement is doomed to die. Maybe after some sort of the compromise or even without the young workers who in all sincerity rise the cry, long live revolution, are not well organized and strong enough to carry the movement themselves. As a matter of fact, even our great leaders, with the exception of the perhaps Pandit Motilal Nehru, do not dare to take any responsibility of their shoulders. That is why free now and then they surrender unconditionally before Gandhi, in spite of their differences. They never oppose him seriously, and the resolution have to be carried for the Mahatma. In these circumstances, let me warn the sincere young worker who a seriously mean a revolution that harder times are the coming. Let them be aware, lest they should get confused or are disheartened after the experience made through to struggle of the great Gandhi. We are in a better position to form a clear idea of our present position and the future program. Now allow me to state the case in the simplest manner. You cry, "Long live revolution." Let me assume that you really mean it. According to our definition of the term, as stated in our statement in the assembly bomb case, the revolution means the complete overthrow of the existing social order, complete overthrow of the existing social order and its replacement with the socialistic order. For that, for that, the purpose of our immediate aim is the achievement of power as a matter of fact. The state, the government machinery is just a weapon. Government machinery is just a weapon in the hand of the ruling class to further and the safeguard its interest. We want to snatch the handle it to utilize it for the consummation of our ideal, that is social restriction, social reconstruction on new, that is the Marxist basis. For this purpose, we are fighting to handle the government machinery. All along, we have to educate the masses and to create a favorable atmosphere for our social program. In the struggle, we can best train the educate them. With these things clear before us, that is our immediate and the ultimate object having been clearly put, we can now the produce we can now proceed with the examination of the present situation. We must always be very candid and quite business like while analyzing any situation. We know that since a hue and cry was raised about the Indian participation in and share in the responsibility of the Indian government. The Minto Marley reform were introduced, which formed the Viceroy Council with the consultation rights only. During the Great War, when the Indian helps was needed, the most promise about self-government were made, and the existing reforms were introduced. Limited legislative power have been entrusted to the assembly, but subject to the goodwill for the viceroy. Now is the third stage. Now reform are being discussed and are to be introduced in the near future. How can our young men judge them? This is the question. I do not know by what standard are the Congress leader going to judge them. But for us, the revolutionaries, we can have the following criteria: extent of the responsibility transferred of the soldiers of the Indians, transferred to the soldiers of the Indians from the government institutions that are going to be introduced and the extent of the right of the participation given to the masses, the future prospect and the safeguards. These this might require a little this might require a little further elucidation. In the first place, we can easily judge the extent of the responsibility given to our people to control the representatives will have on the executive. Up till now, the executive was never made responsible to the legislative assembly, and the viceroy had the veto power, which rendered all the efforts of the elected member futile. Thanks to the efforts of the Swaraj party, the viceroy was forced every now and then to use these extraordinary powers to shamelessly trample to the solemn decision of the national representatives underfoot. It is already too well known to need further discussion. Now, in the first place, we must see the method of the executive formation, whether the executive is to be elected by the members of a popular assembly or is to be imposed from above as before, and further whether it shall be responsible to the house or shall absolutely affront it as in the past. As regard the second item, we can judge it through the scope of the franchise, the property qualification making a man eligible to vote should be to altogether abolished and universal suffrage to be introduced instead. Every adult, both male and female, should have the right to vote. At present, we can simply see how far the franchise has been extended. I may had make a mention about the provincial autonomy, but from whatever I have heard, I can only say that the governor imposed from above, equipped with the extraordinary power higher and above the legislative, shall prove to be no less than a despot. Let us better call it the provincial tyranny instead of the autonomy. This is a strange type of the democratization of the state institution. The third item of the quite clear. During the last 2 years of 2 years, the British politicians have been trying to undo Montague's promise for another another dole of reforms to be bestowed every 10 years till the British Treasury exhausted. We can see what they have decided about the future. Let me make it clear. Let me make it clear that we do not analyze these things to rejoice about our situation so that we may enlighten the masses and prepare them for future struggle. For us, compromise never means surrender, but a step forward and some rest. That is all and nothing else. Having discussed Having discussed the present situation, let's proceed to discuss the future programs and the line of the action we ought to adopt. As I have already stated, for any revolutionary party, a definite program is very essential. For you must know that the revolution means action. It means a change brought about deliberately by an organized and the systematic work as opposed to sudden and unorganized or spontaneous change or breakdown. And for the formulation of a program, one must necessarily study the goal. First is the goal, the premises from where we are to start, that is the existing conditions, the course of action, that is the means and methods. Unless one has a clear notion about these three factors, one cannot discuss anything about program. We have discussed the present situation to some extent. The goal also has been slightly touched. We want a socialist revolution, the indispensable preliminary to which is the political revolution. That is that is what we want. The political revolution does not mean the transfer of state or, more crucial, the power from the hands of the British to the Indian, but to those Indians who are at one with us, as to the final goal, or to be more precise, the power to be transferred to the Revolutionary Party through popular support. After that, to proceed in the right earnest is to organize the reconstruction of the whole society on the socialist basis. If you do not mean this revolution, then please have mercy. Stop shouting, long live revolution. The term revolution is too scared, at least to us, to be so lightly used or misused. But if you say you are for the national revolution and the aim of your struggle is an the Indian Republic of the type of United States of America, then I ask you to please let me know on what forces you rely that will help you bring about the revolution. The only forces on which you can really rely to bring about the revolution, whether the national or the socialist, are the or come up with the peasantry and the laborer. The Congress leader do not dare to organize those forces. You have seen it in this moment. They know it better than no anybody else that without these forces they are thus absolutely helpless. When they passed the revolution of complete independence, that really meant a revolution. They did not mean it. They had to do it under pressure of the younger element, and then they wanted to use it as a threat to achieve their heart's desire, the dominion status. You can easily judge it by the studying the resolution of the last three sessions of the Congress. I mean Madras, Kolkata, and Lahore. At Calcutta, they passed a resolution asking for the Dominion status within the 12 months. Otherwise, they would be forced to adopt complete independence as their object. And in all the solemnity, waited for some such gift till midnight after the 31st December 1929. Then they found themselves honor bound to adopt the independence resolution. Otherwise, they did not mean it. But even the Mahatma Gandhi made no secret made no secret of the fact that the, the door was open for compromise. That was the the spirit. That was the real spirit. At the very outset, they knew that their moment could not but and in some compromise. It is this heartedness that we hate, not the compromise. At a particular stage in the struggle, anyway, we were discussing the forces on which you can depend for a revolution. But if But if you say that you will approach the peasants and laborers to enlist their active support, let me tell you, let me tell you that they are not going to be fooled by any sentimental talk. They ask you quite candidly what what are they going to gain by your revolution, for which you demand their sacrifice. What differences does it make to them whether Lord Reading is the head of the Indian government or Sir Purushottam Das, Thakur Das, Thakur Das? What difference for a peasant if Sir Tej Bahadur Sapru replaces Lord Irwin? It is unless to appeal to his national sentiment. You can't use him for your purpose. You shall have to mean seriously and to make him understood. Understand and that the revolution is going to be his and for his good. The revolution of the proletariat and for the proletariat. When you have the formulated this clear cut idea about your goals, you can proceed in right earnest to organize your forces for such an action. Now there are different phases through which you shall have to pass. First, the preparation. Second, the action. After the present moment ends, you will find disgust and some disappointment among the sincere revolution workers. But you need not worry. Revolution sentimentalism aside, be prepared to face the fact revolution is very difficult task. It is beyond the power of any man to make a revolution. Neither can it be brought about any appointed date. It is brought can be the brought about on an appointed date. It is brought about by special environment, social and economic. The function of an organized party is to utilize any such opportunity offered by these circumstances and to prepare the masses and organize the forces for the revolution. It is a very difficult task and that requires a very great sacrifice on the part of the revolutionary worker. Let me make it clear that if you are a businessman or and that established worldly or family man, please don't play with fire. Let me make it clear that if you are a businessman or a established worldly or a family man, please don't play with fire. As a leader, you are of no use to the party. We have already very many such leaders who spare some evening hours for the delivering speeches. They are useless. We require to use the term so dear to Lenin, the professional revolutionaries, the whole time workers who have no other ambitions or life work except the revolution. The greater the number of such workers organized into a party, the greater the chances of your success. The proceed systematically. What you need the most is a party with workers of the type discussed above with the clear cut ideas and keen perception, and ability of the initiative and quick decision. The parties shall have iron discipline, and it need not necessarily be an underground party. Rather, the contrary, through the policy of the voluntarily going to jail should altogether be abandoned. That will create a number of workers who shall be forced to lead an underground life. They should carry on the work with the same zeal, and it is this group of workers that shall produce worthy leaders for the real opportunity. The party requires workers. The party requires workers which can be recruited only through the youth movement. Hence, we find the youth movement as the starting point of our program. The youth movement should organize study circles, class lectures, and publication of leaflets, pamphlets, books, and the periodicals. This is the best recruiting and the training ground for political workers. Those young men who may have the matured their ideas and may find themselves ready to devote their life to the cause may be transferred to the party. The party workers shall always guide and control the work of the youth movement as well. The party party should start with the work of the mass propaganda. It's a very essential one of the fundamental cause of the failure of the effort of the Gadar party 1914 to 1915 was ignorance, apathy, and the sometimes active opposition of the masses. And apart from that, it is essential for the gaining the active sympathy of the organizing the peasants and workers. The name of the party, or rather a communist party, this party of the political workers bound by the strict discipline, should handle all other movements. It shall have to organize the peasants and workers, the party's labor's unions, and may even venture to capture the Congress and the kindred the political bodies. And in order to create the consciousness not only of the national politics but class politics, as well as the party should organize a big publishing campaign subject on all the proletarians problems, enlightening the masses of the socialist theory shall be within easy reach, distributed widely. The writing should be simple and clear. There are the certain people in the labor movement who enlist some absurd ideas about the economic liberty of the peasants and workers without political freedom. They are they are the demagogues or the muddle-headed people. Such ideas are the unimaginable and the preposterous. We mean the economic liberty of the masses, and for that very purpose, we are striving for to win the political power. No doubt, in the beginning, we shall have to fight for the little economic demands and the privileges of these classes, but the struggle are the best mean for the educating them for his final struggle to the conquer the political power. Apart from these, there shall apart from these there shall necessarily be organized a military department. This is very important. At times, its need is felt very badly, but at last, but at that time, you cannot, you cannot start and formulate such a group with the substantial means to act effectively. Perhaps this is the topic that need a careful explanation. There is a very great probability of my being misunderstood of this subject. Apparently, I have acted like a terrorist, but I am not a terrorist. I am a revolutionary who has got such definite ideas of the program, lengthy program, ideas of a lengthy program as is being discussed here. My comrades in arms might cause me like Ram Prasad Bismil for having been subjected to certain sort of reactions in the condemned shell, which is not true. I have got the same ideas, same convictions, same zeal, and the same spirit as I used to have outside. Perhaps, 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 decidedly better. Hence, I want my readers to be careful while reading my words. They should not try to read anything about between the lines. Let me announce with all the strength at my command that I am not a terrorist and I never was, except perhaps in the beginning of my revolutionary career. I'm, a, I'm convinced that we cannot gain anything through those methods. One can easily judge it from the history of the Hindustan Socialist Republic Association. All our activists all our activists were directed toward towards an aim, that is the identifying ourselves with the im- great movement as its military wing. If anybody has misunderstood me, let him amend his ideas. I do not mean that bombs and pistols are useless, rather the contrary, but I mean to say that mere bomb throwing is not only useless but sometimes harmful. The military department of the party should always keep should always keep ready all the war material if in command for any emergency. It should make the political work of the party. It cannot and should not work independently. It should bake the political work on the party. On these lines indicated above, the party should proceed with its work through the periodical meetings and conferences. This should go on the educating and enlightening their workers on all topics. If you start the work on these lines, you shall have to be very sober. The program require at least 20 years for its fulfillment. Cast aside the youthful dreams of a revolution within 10 years of the Gandhi's utopian promises of the Swaraj in 1 year. It requires neither the emotion nor the death, but the life of constant struggle, suffering, and sacrifice. The curse of your individuality first. Shake off the dreams of the personal comfort, then start work inch by inch. You shall have to proceed. It needs courage and pers- pursue pursue perseverance and very strong determination. No difficulties and no hardship shall discourage you. No failure and the betrayal shall dishearten you. No trials imposed upon you shall snuff out the revolutionary zeal in you through the ordeal of the suffering and the sacrifice. You shall come out victorious, and these individual victories shall be the valuable asset of the revolution. Long live revolution. There is, I think, cast aside the youthful dream of the revolution within 10 years of the Gandhi's utopian promise of the Swaraj in 1 year. It requires neither of the emotion nor the death, but the life of the constant struggle, suffering, and sacrifice.